I sense into this new moon in Virgo, it feels very receptive. Like, have you ever received an experience where you thought it was going to be something and it turned out not to be that way? You went through that experience, you opened up to that experience, and it ended up being really off-putting. It ended up really maybe disappointing you, or maybe it really ended up being an experience in which you had to take care of something and grow something and nurture something that you really didn't want to give your energy to. Maybe that experience felt dark in some way, limiting some way, hurtful in some way. This is kind of a new moon where we can look at those experiences, we can go through a healing process, especially on a mental level, and where we can dig out some of the old stuff, especially in our feminine energy related to that, coming more into our individual needs and what can support us in our relationships, but also just make us more conscious about where we've been really innocent and we haven't really shown up in more wisdom or maturity, and we've gotten ourselves into situations and circumstances that didn't turn out so well, and how we can really be more conscious when we decide to grow something in our lives, we decide to give service to others, how we can be a lot more conscious around that, where we are making sure that our values, we're in touch with our values around that, where we are respecting our individual needs and desires around that, where we're advocating for ourselves around that, so that you're a lot more conscious with what you're growing in your life, what you're nurturing in your life, what you're healing in your life, what you're giving your energy to in your life, so that it feels good, so that it feels empowering, so that it feels healthy. Hey guys, welcome to Realization Hub. My name is Michelle, and I'm an intuitive counselor, energy healer, and channeler who loves to teach sensitive and awakened souls how to be in command of their energy, develop their intuition, and navigate the energetic and physical world and all their spiritual transformations like a boss. So if you often feel like you're out of balance, you feel like crap, you're commingled with other people, you don't know the difference between your energy and other people's energy, you feel like a psychic sponge, you lose your balance, get triggered, just feeling stuck or disconnected or lost or confused all the time, you tend to hermit yourself from the world so that you can function, then you might want to consider learning how to manage your energy. And those are the tools that I teach. So if you're interested in that, please look in the description box and find some more information below. All right, guys, I had to change rooms because my neighbor decided to do some woodwork and there was too much noise. So I'm in here now doing the video. So in case you were wondering why the change of the background, that's why. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into the new moon. The new moon is happening on Monday, September 2nd at 6:55 p.m. Pacific time, and it's happening in Virgo. There's a purity to Virgo. There's a purity, there's a humbleness, there's a humility to this energy of really just wanting to do good, wanting to be of service, wanting to be helpful, wanting to improve things, wanting to make things better, wanting to take something that may not be fully matured yet, taking something and nurturing it and caring for it so that it can come into well-being, so that it can come into healing, so that it can come into health, so that it can improve, so that it can be better, so that it can come into its full potential. So I just feel that Virgo is an incredible sign that's growth-oriented, that's looking for healing, looking for improvement, looking to really do that in a real way. And it's not afraid to look at all the details in order to make something real happen and in order to manifest something in a real way or embody something in a real way. The new moon is going to be happening at 11 degrees in Virgo. Now that would be the second decade of Virgo, which I believe is ruled by Saturn. So it's kind of like that that new beginning that we're doing has that quality of responsibility. It has that quality of long-term commitment. It has that quality of being disciplined, showing up, doing things one step at a time if needed, doing the work, the willingness to put in the work, the willingness to work hard. And we might be doing this in multiple areas of our lives. Virgo is a mutable sign, and so oftentimes Virgo does have a few things going at once. This might be a time where there's a few things starting at once for you, or a few things that you're wanting to grow or embody or tend to all at once. And you're willing to do the work, you're willing to show up, and you're committed to it. Or at least that's the quality that we are embodying in this new beginning. Now, the first thing I want to look at with this new moon is that it's ruled by Mercury. So we want to look at Mercury and see what's going on with Mercury during this new moon. Mercury will still be in Leo. It will be going direct. It's no longer in retrograde. And it's going to be at 23 degrees in Leo. So Mercury at 23 degrees of Leo is going to be in the third decan of Leo, which gives this quality of Mars, which would make our communication a lot more direct, a lot more to the point, maybe even impulsive. And it also gives that quality of wanting to speak authentically, really just wanting to be real, wanting to, also maybe be more expressive, more entertaining, maybe even more funny, or just where we use our communication to step into like our own words that help us be leaders in the world, help us be a role model in some way, help us break into new terrain or unknown terrain in some way. But as I look at Mercury, Mercury will have a trine with Chiron. Okay, so right off the bat, this new moon is some type of healing that's occurring with our communication, our thinking, our learning, our mental processing, or our minds. Chiron is going to be in Aries. So whatever we're healing is happening on an individual level. So around this new moon, whatever may be getting triggered, whatever we may be revisiting in some way, is about you, is about our individual self, something that needs to be tended to on an individual level. Our minds. Where do we need to let go? Where do we need to release? Where are we holding patterns on an individual level, mental patterns on an individual level that are limiting us, that we're ready to release, that perhaps isn't allowing us to really come into our full authenticity, not really allowing us to communicate in a fully authentic way, not allowing us to be real in some way. Now, intuitively, when I was looking at this Mercury trining Chiron on a collective level, what I was noticing is that maybe kind of on a broad scale, the collective has been in the fog, kind of taking one step at a time, going on a journey, going through a type of an ascension of some kind, but not really being clear about what's happening, why it's happening, or really coming into the full picture of things for themselves. So what I notice about Mercury trining Chiron is that there's this effortless healing that comes in. It's kind of like getting to the top of that summit and being above the cloud line and being able to see the entire landscape. There's some type of clarity that we're coming into on a collective level around this time, and it's coming in effortlessly. And that type of clarity helps us to see some of the fog that's been around us, some of the belief systems, some of the ways we're thinking or processing things that has been keeping us from really coming into our truth, really communicating our truth, really having communication with others that is authentic and real, and really just feeling like warm in our communication. Like Leo is kind of, it's ruled by the sun. It's warming. It can be very generous, and it can speak from the heart. And we might have wounds within us that maybe are harsh, maybe are critical, maybe are expecting perfection from others. And maybe we are breaking that down and letting it go and coming into a position where we can be clear with other people, we can be clear with ourselves, but we don't have to, we don't have to be harsh. We can be warm, we can be loving, and we can be even generous in our communication. I think one of the interesting things happening directly with this new moon is that there is a square with Persephone. Having that square creates a challenge. It creates a challenge of both energies. And like right off the bat, the most obvious challenge with those two energies is that Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. It can be very broad. We have these broad perspectives, broad information, broad philosophies, a bird's eye view on things. And it can be kind of like happy-go-lucky, it can kind of be optimistic, right? Whereas Virgo can be really in the details, so in the details that they lose the broad perspective, so in the details that they get short-sighted, or maybe, are becoming critical or fixated on perfection or improving something, losing that broad perspective. And so what I'm sensing here, because it's Persephone, which is kind of like this dark goddess, not in an evil way, but in a way that helps us dive into our depths, dive into the hidden self, dive into some of our wounds or, unseen things in our energy, and dig things out for the sake of taking our power back, for the sake of maturing, for the sake of coming into our power and our authority, right? So we might be kind of digging some things that are in our closet, kind of old energies it's kind of like going into your psychic closet, and seeing a bunch of clothes hanging, and it's just really old, and, you might like some of the details, but overall it's just not working for you. Or maybe overall it's working for you, but when you look at the details, it's not working. So there's kind of like a need to really go through some growth around these two energies. Like, what is working for us on a broad level, and where do we need to address the details that are not working for us? Or what's working for us in the details, but on a broad level might not be working for us at all. And where do we need to update that? Where do we need to kind of clean out the closet, clean out things that are hidden in our feminine energy, especially? And, maybe challenge some of our fun-loving philosophies, or maybe challenge some of the ways we're being overly critical, overly perfectionistic, or overly caught up on the details. We are going to be challenged in our thinking around this. We've got Mercury trining Chiron, so we're working through some kind of healing process on a mental level. We're working through something that's challenged, something that's not matching up for us, something that's not resonating with us between the details and the overall perspective in our lives. And my sense is that we're being asked to see the broader perspective at this time. Like, we're going to be in Virgo season dealing with the details, but we do need to have a brighter perspective on the broad kind of thing that's happening for us spiritually, or the broad thing that's happening, in what we're creating or what we're experiencing. There's something that's asking us to have a broad perspective around this time, even though we're in Virgo season, which is down in the dirty details of everything. So some other things that are happening is that Mars is going to be squaring Neptune at this time. Mars will be in Gemini, Neptune in Pisces. Neptune is no longer at the 29th degree at this time. So like right off the bat, I almost feel this overwhelm of like so many things that we're doing at once, so many things that we need to learn at once, so many things that are stimulating us mentally at once, and where we might be feeling like no boundaries. Like the lines are blurred. We have no boundaries with what we're doing. We're getting a little bit lost and scattered around this time. That's the challenge. But if you were to kind of wield this energy, it's kind of asking for you to maybe step into more imaginative, creative pursuits, where your spiritual practice can help your learning practice, where your learning practice can help your spiritual practice, where embracing your creativity can help you do what you're needing to do, where embracing your imagination, your spiritual practice, your creativity can help you move through obstacles. And so around this time, you want to make sure that you're really grounded. It might be more difficult to be grounded. If you start to get stuck in your head around this time, if you start to get, stuck around these obstacles, and it might be time, instead of trying to figure it all out in your head, it might be time to kind of shift into more of that spiritual modality. Approaching things from more of a spiritual or creative or imaginative lens could really help around that challenge. We have another square with Jupiter squaring Saturn. Now, this is something that's going to be happening, I believe, a few times over the next year or so. I don't have the exact dates on that. I apologize. But, Jupiter is in Gemini. So Jupiter in general wants us to grow and expand and embrace new opportunities whenever it's transiting a sign, and it's actually in detriment in Gemini. It's a very big, broad energy that wants to expand, wants to grow, and Gemini is another one of those signs that is kind of focused more on the details. It's a little bit more about learning and intellectual learning and doing all these little things at once and being kind of mental about that. And Jupiter is a lot more philosophical. It's a lot more about experiential learning, like jump into the experience and learn, get some wisdom from the experience. Whereas Gemini is like, let me open a book and study and learn and do this instead, and so we might be having a lot of new opportunities of things we can learn. We might be having a lot of growth from things that we're learning on an intellectual level. We might have a lot of social opportunities, opportunities where we can communicate, improve our communication, have experiences where we bring our wisdom into our communication. This is generally on a collective level where we're having a very big expansion around the mind and how we relate to our minds and how we relate to overstimulation and how we relate to technology even. And then we have a square with Saturn. And this square with Saturn is basically restricting that energy, and it's in Pisces. And so it's kind of like, making sure that we don't grow too fast, and Gemini is actually, can be very quick. It's a very witty, quick kind of intellectual energy. And so we might be thinking really fast. We might be going too fast in our minds, and Saturn, in some ways, I think what's serving us with this square with Saturn is that it slows us down. It forces us to slow down. It forces us to process things slower. It forces us to do more work, show up with more maturity, show up with more commitment, be willing to do the hard work with our minds, and so for people struggling with their mental health, for people working through communication, improving their communication, for people that are learning new skills, for people that are, building a community and creating, new social networks, like this would be that energy of putting in the hard work. Putting in being disciplined, showing up consistently, doing things gradually over time, having to actually put in the work to get results instead of it just kind of landing in your lap. So typically with Jupiter, those opportunities just kind of fly in very easily and naturally, and it can feel like, sometimes the universe just kind of surprising you with, gifts, and you can feel like, oh yeah, I'm so good at creating, all these things are coming in for me. And that can be that experience of Jupiter. But with it squaring Saturn, it's a little bit of like, why isn't this working? Like, I want to create this thing. I want to grow this. I want to come into new opportunities. And like, dang it, I have to do the work. I have to put in the work. I have to take it one step at a time and do the work. Now, some of this, because Saturn is in Pisces, might have to do with, our emotional nature, our spiritual nature, our creative nature, and really having to make that real, not bypass things, but really address the details head on, make it real, do the work, make it practical, things like that. So another thing to know about this new moon is that it's transformative. We have Uranus trining Pluto. We also have Uranus in sextile to Neptune. And we have Neptune in sextile to Pluto. So there's definitely a transformative conversation happening on a spiritual level, happening with our creativity, and creating change because Uranus is involved. Uranus in sextile to Neptune. This is asking us probably to be more adaptable in how we navigate things. Generally what I see is that we don't have a straightforward direction that we're going in. We might be going in a direction and we have to zigzag. We might be going into a direction and instead of just this step-by-step process, we might have to skip over here, jump over here, take a leap over here, go backwards over here, and then, hop over this obstacle over here. But either way, we might be using some level of small shifts or adaptability around how we spiritually or energetically navigate our experience. Being willing to be innovative, being willing to try something new, being willing to be intuitive, bringing in our intuition, not just figuring everything out, but using our intuition to help us pivot, make some small shifts, jump over some obstacles, so that we can really turn what we're dreaming about, what we're imagining, into something real and actually allow some change to happen. Now, with Uranus trining Pluto, we're probably breaking through some deep patterns, allowing ourselves to come into more freedom, maybe breaking down things that need to be broken down or rebuilding something new, rebirthing something to allow new changes to emerge for us. So this is definitely transformative when Pluto's involved and can be intense. But when we have a trine, usually with Pluto, when you have a trine, you have clarity about this transformation. You're not in the dark. It's kind of like when you're going on a hike. Let's say you're going on a hike in the middle of the night and you have a full moon. It's almost like you can see the whole ground. You can see where you're walking because the moon is illuminating everything around you. And so you might be in the dark. You might be navigating through something that you haven't seen before, but you have clarity. You can see it, right? And that's the gift of having a trine with Pluto is that, yeah, you're going through a transformation. Yeah, you're digging out some hidden stuff. Yeah, you're breaking down deep patterns. Yeah, you are dealing with some intensity even in a transformation. But you can see what's going on. You can see why it's helping you. You can see why it's serving you. Whatever you're letting go of, you recognize that it's important to let it go. Whatever you're rebuilding, rebirthing, you're understanding why it's happening, what's going on. You have the clarity with that. Intuitively, when I'm tuning into Uranus trining Pluto, it makes me think about those parts of us that have held back from being unique and different. Uranus is all about being outside the box, being quirky, unique, different, innovative, ahead of our time. And where have we on a collective level, Pluto being in Aquarius, where have we on a collective level, blended into our environment, decided what's normal, what's not normal, and we're living a life that's kind of prescribed to us, and it might be normal, but is it? Is it normal for you? Are you being, authentic? Are you stepping into your true, unique, different nature? Is there something calling you to be a little bit more wild, a little bit more freaky, a little bit more weird in some way? This could be more of that transformation that happens that allows us to kind of confront these parts of us that are too weird, too different, misunderstood, outcasted, rebellious, versus these parts of us that might be, kind of small, kind of yearning to be free, yearning to have more freedom of expression. Mercury's going to be in Leo. And so we're still kind of in our self-expression, wanting to be more authentic, wanting to be more real. And so this could be more of a transformation that allows us to come into being more unique, breaking free, allowing more authenticity in the way we express ourselves, allowing ourselves to be different, allowing ourselves to be innovative, allowing ourselves to be something that, draws attention because, we're bringing something new into the world in some way. So Neptune being in sextile to Pluto, that's definitely a spiritual transformation of course. It's a great time to build inner strength, embrace your creativity, meet your emotional needs, recognize that maybe something personally that you've gone through spiritually can help others on a societal level. So there's definitely a spiritual transformation happening at this time that brings about supportive changes. So another thing I want to mention is that Lilith is going to be in Libra, conjuncting the South Node, Venus and Juno, opposing the North Node, and all of that's going to be squaring Ceres and Capricorn. So what does that all mean? Well, first of all, Lilith is going to bring is kind of like a dark goddess, not in an evil way, but like as in it's that energy that can go into our feminine energy and dig out hidden stuff, stuff that is wounded, stuff that is limiting us, stuff that we need to take our power back. Lilith is also an energy that tends to desire equality, and she's looking for equality. She's looking to be equal. It's an energy that wants to, take her power back. I'll start with Lilith in Libra. This is definitely bringing up some of our hidden stuff in our relationships. We're, probably opening up some stuff on an energetic level in our relationships and looking at where things aren't really showing up, like power imbalances in our relationships. Where do we have a power imbalances? Maybe related to food, related to money, related to resources. It is squaring Ceres in Capricorn, and Capricorn's all about structure and boundaries and one step at a time and our achievements and our ambitions. And where have we have tendencies in our relationships where we're like a workaholic and there's kind of like an imbalance in our relationship? Or where have we had issues with food in our relationship where like someone is always deciding what we're eating, or someone's always restricting what we're eating, or you can't get on the same page about your diet and their diet, or respecting each other's boundaries around food, or just having habits around food that are throwing off the balance of the relationship, just because Ceres can be related to nutrition and food. It could be stress, where there's some kind of financial stress, some kind of burnout going on, in our relationships. It could be environmental, that's affecting our relationships, like having inflation, like having struggles in our economy, like the food costs going up, having hidden issues showing up in ourselves that affect our relationships that we might be starting to release and look at around this time. Intuitively speaking, what I sense about that is that, we could just have some old stuff, that bad memories. It's like having a hangover of bad relationships, bad memories, bad experiences in relationships. You know, experiences with relationships that were maybe hard, that maybe felt invalidating, that maybe made us feel like we were outcasted or misunderstood, or that we didn't belong in some way. Maybe where we've been grieving something in our relationships, where we really just have to learn how to take it out, take a look at it, see it for what it is, and kind of get a healing around it. Brighten up, laugh at it, bring some amusement to it, let it go. But definitely allowing there to be some kind of power rebalance going on in our relationships, starting with ourselves, starting with working with that wounding that comes from within. Now, with that said, there is this inconjunction happening with Hygeia, that's kind of hitting Lilith and the South Node and Venus. And so this could be stuff related to our healing, related to where we've been over expressing ourselves in a relationship or under expressing ourselves in a relationship. It could be where, maybe we weren't, Hygeia will be in Taurus. So maybe where we were over expressing our boundaries, and our values, or under expressing our values. Maybe where we were struggling with low self-esteem, or maybe where we were feeling superior to others. But either way, both of those dynamics would create a power imbalance in a relationship. And we might be looking at that. We might be looking at where we're not completely showing up in our values, or where we didn't show up in our values, where we maybe had a hard time embodying that, or just making that very practical or simple in some way, and where that has affected our relationships and given us a bad taste in our mouths, where we might have to let some old stuff go, some old hidden stuff go around that. Embracing more of our individual needs, of course. On a collective level, this may be a time where we see people having issues with chronic stress, chronic health issues that need to be addressed. Like living in a society that is promoting workaholism, where people are feeling like a slave rather than like a sacred servant, where we're expected to act normal, but it's not actually serving us on an individual level. It's actually feeling unhealthy. It's not meeting our authentic needs. This is where I'm seeing society examining health, where it's felt restricted, where we're not getting nourished, where, we're not taking care of ourselves well. Maybe where our environment is not nourishing us in some way, perhaps at work, perhaps in our relationships. But overall, having to examine the details of that and start to correct some of those imbalances on a collective level. Now, unfortunately, on a collective level, it does look like people are suffering on an emotional level. They are in dark places. People feeling, having very harsh, dark thoughts, being in lots of fear, stress, anxiety, dealing with extreme sides of them that are trying to cope through this, dealing with those parts of them that are seeking out extreme solutions for relief, addiction, food, coping through eating poorly with food, coping by, doing things that in the long run are not healthy. This may be a time where we're examining, our work, the systems in which we work, the places and the environments in which we work, our relationships at work, our relationships that impact us every day, examining our mental health, our emotional health, how that relates to food, how that relates to work, how that relates to the details and the overall perspective of what's happening, the overstimulation of technology, the overstimulation of how fast things are changing, the overstimulation of, just how we're all kind of interconnected, through like social media and internet, and how there's also at the same time a total disconnection happening where we're not really having authentic connection anymore. This is where the collective is kind of in an agreement to go through a dark, kind of like a dark phase of that for the sake of rebalancing it on a collective level. So if you do not want to have that experience, make sure that you are consciously releasing any agreements on a collective level to go through dark emotional experiences, because that is something that is happening collectively. It doesn't have to happen with you personally. So some of the wisdom coming through around how to be more in command of your energy and work with your intuition around this new moon is that Virgo can be a very mental energy, even though it can be very grounded and logical and practical and discerning. This is a mental healing. So whenever you're going through a mental healing, energetically, you might be releasing old thoughts. You might be releasing thoughts that are not yours. You might be dealing with old memories, old experiences that hurt you, that made you feel wounded, or it created some type of pain. So whenever you're going through a mental growth period or a mental detox, you first want to observe your thoughts instead of acting on them. This is probably a time where it would be good to have a very safe space to express some of the thinking that needs to come out of you. So some of the best, safest ways to do that is to take time to journal. Sometimes going out in nature and just getting grounded in nature is a great way to take a break from your mind. Having a safe person to share or process what you're thinking or going through could be helpful at this time. But generally, the tools that I teach is, how to release your attachment to these thoughts. Literally pulling the energy of these old thoughts out of your body and releasing them. So if you need help doing that, definitely take a look at my classes below. I have a free introduction class that you can sign up for in September. But when it comes to a mental growth period, it's common for your thoughts to get more loud and chattery. You might have extra thinking at this time. You might have more negative thinking at this time. You might have more self-deprecative thinking at this time. And that's just the old stuff that's coming out. And when you recognize that that is a healing, that old stuff has to come out first, and you observe it, you can kind of look at the quality of those thoughts. Maybe there are thoughts about money, or maybe there are thoughts about a particular relationship, or maybe there are thoughts about your body or your food or your health, or just how things are going overall in your life. But you can kind of ask the question, what is actually coming in? There's something coming in. There's a transformation that's happening. There's something new coming in which these thoughts are being purged out. So these are the old thoughts getting purged out. Can you be curious about like the perspective that might be coming in around this time, the new perspective that you're embracing, because those old thoughts, you've outgrown them. They're holding you back to the point where you've decided to let them go, to throw them in the trash can, so to speak. So that means something new is already coming in. You've already expanded. Can you be aware of that? Sometimes when the mind is going through changes, it's important to distract yourself. Healthy distractions, or if you're going through a very intense mental healing, any distraction will do. But not getting caught up in processing and taking those thoughts seriously will be very helpful during a mental healing and a mental growth period. But a great time to be loving towards yourself, loving towards others. Of course, we're all going through it at this point. And so I just say that as kind of a ongoing thing, just we're all going through something. So be kind to yourself, be kind to others. We're all doing the best we can with the information that we have. This is a time to be patient with your growth. This is a time to not expect instant results. You might have to be very patient with how you grow something, how you build something, how it comes together for you. You might be having to put in some work, some discipline, taking on some more responsibilities. You might have to be actively cultivating optimism and learning new skills while feeling kind of depressed or melancholy or emotional or dark in some way. And that is an important skill of leadership. And even if you're not in leadership with a community or friends or your family, you are a leader of yourself, always. You're always going to be in that position to be self-led. And if you are a conscious person, you practice personal growth, healing, expansion, transformation, evolution, spiritual awakening. That makes you a conscious person. That makes you someone that is a leader. And you're self-led, and you do have an impact on other people around you. And so I know that this is a time, it's kind of looking like a time where people are kind of moving through some emotionally dark stuff, possibly around work, possibly around money, possibly around their health, things that need to be healed. This new moon is about what needs to be healed, what needs to be healed mentally, what needs to be healed in the way we communicate with our relationships, what needs to be healed. And so this is where you can attend to some of those details and make a very big difference in the long run. All right. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy these videos, please like the video and subscribe to this channel. It really helps me out a lot, and I'd love to see you here more often. All right, take care. Bye.